Here in the Central Region, the harsh reality comes to life. A dining hall prefect, Sambali, informs first-year students of the insufficient food supply. Their meals are reduced to simple, often nutritionally inadequate options. This situation is not unique to the Central Region, but is echoed across schools in other regions.
That our food is not enough. As I've told you earlier, we have no food at the stores, and the master is in Accra now, fighting for food for our own benefit. So we are pleading with you to manage a little here, and we promise you very soon there will be enough food for us, so that we can all enjoy ourselves. Thank you.
Under the policy, residential students are supposed to benefit from 3 square meals, while non-residential ones get 1 hot meal. But not only was the quantity of food served these children less than they expected, but 12 to 8 students are assigned to a jug of porridge or bowl of food.
The challenge has been that my daughter is constantly complaining that the food they are fed with is not enough. I've taken the pains to also provide enough food, like Gary and others, that she can eat from her chop box. But it turns out that the school has drawn a timetable for visiting the chop box, so that there's days that she cannot go to the chop box even though she has food, and they can also not provide enough at the dining hall. So it's a challenge. Parents of this school have come together to get support for the school. So we contribute some amount of money. We're supposed to contribute twice in a term. That's 500 cedis for the first half, and the other half we contribute another 500 cedis.
We tried to support, but because of government initiative, it's difficult. So for me, I sometimes, let me put in quotes, smuggled food to the school for my ward.
What food do you usually smuggle to your ward?
Oh, sometimes rice, sometimes fufu, sometimes umchi. Send it to the school.
To the online platform I had infiltrated, I discovered numerous complaints from school heads about weevil-infested maize bags supplied, despite assurances from the free SHS coordinator that only a few bags were affected. My observations revealed several bags of maize being treated with neem tree leaves to ward off the pests. Given the critical food shortages, some school heads have conveyed to me their inability to discuss the contaminated maize, as there is scarcely enough to feed the students.
Look at here. I want you to take. I want you to take a view. This is maize infested. It's highly infested. So someone advised us that we can use the neem tree. So yesterday we put it outside. The boys put it outside,
And these were given to be fed to the children.
Yes, 3 SHs. And so they are there a lot. So I'm experimenting. So yesterday we spread it on the ground. We put the neem tree upon it, and we are seeing some reduction in that's what. But this is the work of headmasters.
And that's how we kickstart our big stories. We're focusing on the situation in our second tier or second cycle institutions. Free SHS. Now, when it comes to feeding, among other things, has it been a blessing or a curse? It has to do with that latest Hotline documentary, Empty plates, the free SHS Promise. This was not what was promised, but how do we tweak it? You don't throw away the baby with the bath water, right? You want to keep the baby, which is free SHS, but where is the bath water? How do you deal with it? And we're going to have that all-important conversation this morning with the Deputy Ranking Member on the Education Committee of Parliament in the person of Dr. Clement Apaak. He joins me in the studio this morning. Doc, good morning.
Let me say good morning to you and to our viewers, and to say a Happy New Year.
Right.
I just became aware that this is the first time I've come to multimedia, and this is the first time that you are hosting me in your new studio.
Right.
So
welcome to the new studio. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it is very befitting. I mean, having known your media organization for years,
right,
and the fact that you've always been pace setters, I think the augmented edifice really keeps you in your enviable position.
Prime of place.
Primus
inter pares.
You must be commended. Primus
Thank you.
inter pares.
Thank you.
Negusa negast. As a student of African history, you know, Ethiopian history,
right,
the rise of the Ethiopian state, the Aksumite kingdom. Primus inter pares was known as the Negusa negast. So, Congress.
Thank you, and we're grateful. We do all of this for God and country so that we can serve the people better. But let's come to more critical issues. Have you seen, you watched the excerpts. Today, the 18th day of the third month, we're airing Empty Plates, the free SHS Promise. Like I mentioned, free SHS, no one disputes. It's a good thing, but every step of the way, there have been problems. I'd like to get your initial views on what you have seen. I do know that you want to start from the generic standpoint.
That is correct.
You can start from there, but let's quickly do that and narrow it down to free SHS.
Very well. I think we all must agree that education is one of the most important services a state and or a parent can offer to your ward. And that is why across the globe, every nation, every country, regardless of the system of governance, whether a democracy, a theocracy, an oligarchy, you name it, would always invest time, resources in education. Because it is education that gives us the training that we need, not only to contribute to our nation and to our humanity, but to better ourselves and to also better our families and those yet to come. Take you and I, for example. We are here in this studio today having a conversation of a national magnitude because of education. And we know education must start from somewhere.
Yeah.
So, of course, you cannot leap from kindergarten, which is, you know, the foundation, to secondary school.
Right.
And so whilst I appreciate the fact that we have to focus on what is going on within the context of the free senior school policy and the implementation challenges thereof, I think it is important that I give a quick summary of the challenges in the lower tier, which is a very important foundational segment of the educational ladder. As we speak, basic education is equally bedeviled with perhaps even much more challenging situations that the Ghanaian public is not aware of because of the lack of politicization of public.
Lack of politicization.
Yes.
Really?
The reason why we keep speaking more about secondary education is because it has been overtly politicized with the introduction of the free senior school policy. So the time, energy, and resources.
You are suggesting that because that has become a political topic,
that is correct,
we tend to focus on it.
A lot
but at
more.
the basic level, because it's not politicized, we don't talk as much.
We don't tend to talk about it as much.
Right.
But I think that in itself is a disservice to us, because the students must go from basic to secondary. And so when you don't have a robust, well-grounded, well-resourced and facilitated basic education. Then the structure, which is secondary, and the superstructure, which is tertiary, is troubled because the product must come from the base to the middle and then go to the apex. As we are speaking today, capitation grant, which is the grant that allows us to say that public basic education is free, is in areas of 8 terms or 8 tranches. And yeah, this is the grant that the heads of the basic schools, the head teachers, have to use to procure, attendance registers, chalk, fix broken down doors, windows, get masons to come and patch cracked walls, finance sporting activities or PE, and cultural activities. And so when there are arrears, it puts a lot of pressure on the heads of public basic schools. In fact, believe it or not, these days, the job that many teachers dread the most is to become appointed as the head of a public basic school because of the numerous challenges. The furniture deficit, I know your media network.
We've spoken a lot
You've
about
spoken a lot about it. You've done this series, Schools of Shame. We have a deficit in excess of 1.3 million. What that tells you is that 1.3 million learners in our basic school system have no access to furniture. And now we have the issue of textbooks. Textbooks that ought to have accompanied the new standard-based curriculum, which came into being in September 2019. Only 65% of those textbooks have been produced and distributed. And more recently, with the utilities, Electricity Corporation of Ghana and Ghana Water, doing their best to recoup or to augment their revenue, they are cutting power supply to different entities and institutions. This actually also includes public basic schools. So the challenges in the basic sector are also enormous, and I'm hoping that someday we can have time to delve in more detail. Now to secondary education.
Right.
I belong to the NDC, and we had an alternative.
And hopefully we can look at this holistically.
Yes. I'm not going to talk
without
politics.
politicizing.
No. I just want to give the context.
Right.
I want to give the context because there is still the false narrative being pushed to suggest that the NDC is opposed to free senior high school, and that if the NDC gets a chance, if Ghanaians were to elect John Dramani Mahama and the NDC, we will cancel free senior high school. When in fact, that is not what we have said. What we have said is that the free senior high school concept is born of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. And the Constitution mandates that the state shall work to make education free or progressively free, as we like to use that rendition.
So that's why we have a spin-off from F cube at the basic level and then the continuation at the secondary level.
That is correct. Right. And we indeed had started what we call the progressive free senior high school policy. In fact, we were commended by then candidate Akufo-Addo when John Dramani Mahama catch sword for the first E-block at Ekumfi, Otuam, and announced the beginning of the progressively free senior high school policy. Now the tide changed, so they come into power, and their alternative was to go wholesale. But even so, we know that the students who were in third and second year in 2017 did not benefit from what we defined within the context of the current nomenclature as free senior high school. But be as it may, we have all come to accept that this is a good policy because the concept is of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. But we also pointed out that there are challenges that ought to be addressed. And to address those challenges, if we have the mandate, we will review the policy in order to address those challenges with the intent of making it better. And that is where I believe it is important to clarify. Because suddenly the word review has been redefined to mean cancel, which clearly is not the case.
But I think recently, I do not know whether I think it was even the SONA. Mr. President used that word at a point in reference to free SHS. The very first time.
The word review.
Yeah.
Actually, he didn't.
He
didn't.
He used the word akin to that. And you must give him credit for that because it's the first time in any sequence that we've heard him even make mention of that. And that points to something. The vice president, who is flag bearer of the NDC, has also pointed to some
They use the word improve.
Review.
They don't use review.
Which the education minister started using.
Yes.
But an improvement is some sort of review.
But how do you improve a system that is challenged without a review? And you see, here's the hypocrisy. In fact, I'm so glad that you brought this up. If you look at the first review of our engagement with the IMF,
right,
aka the bailout, page 76, paragraph 47, the second paragraph, government actually tells the IMF that in the educational sector, and I'm quoting because I've memorized it, it's my area, that in the educational sector, we will review and rationalize. So they are not just telling the IMF that they will review, but they will review and rationalize the free senior high school program.
And rationalization in economic terms
means
comes with
making it efficient.
Exactly.
So this is a government, and it is important, that is refusing to admit to Ghanaians the challenges that we have complained about, that your documentary is helping to expose in a much more poignant manner, in a way that has never been done before. And you must be commended, because what you have done in terms of this documentary that you have titled Empty Place,
the Free SHS Promise.
The Free SHS Promise, has never been done before. So this is going to escalate the debate to a level that we have never witnessed before. But the reason why I'm making this point is that Ghanaians of all walks of life, all stakeholders in the educational sector, I mean, name it, NAGRAT, CCT, NAT, you can talk about the National House of Chiefs, the Chief Imam, almost every stakeholder in the Republic has called for a review of the policy because of the challenges that we know are bedeviling the program and denying the Ghanaian public, the Ghanaian state, and the beneficiaries, our wards, from getting the maximum outcome from the policy. But government has refused. And instead of government admitting, finally, as it has admitted to the IMF, that it would review and rationalize, government through the president, through the flag bearer Mahmoud Bawumia, through the Minister for Education Edu Chum, would rather use the word improve. But how do you improve a system when you do not assess it?
Okay, so let's go past the semantics, the nomenclature. It also reminds me of the fact that I believe it was the IMF, if not the World Bank, but just to be on the safer side, I believe it was the IMF when we were in the process of securing the program from the IMF, or getting the IMF to support our program. Basically, that is what it is.
That's correct.
When they issued that document, I do not know whether it's the document 4 or something of the sort, they stated in there that there were problems with free SHS and that it had a targeting problem.
That's correct.
In other words, it's been spread across, but we could do more with it to narrowing it down to those target groupings who actually require it. There were proposals.
That's correct.
Right from the start of this IMF program. And mind you, this is not to say free SHS is bad. No one has ever said.
Not at all.
The issue is in implementing free SHS. Are we getting it right? That is the question.
That is the question.
So at least that background will help to know that right from the start, the IMF had been prompting us that the way you are executing this may not be the best of situations. But coming back to where we find ourselves, this isn't the first time we've had a feeding problem.
No.
Or exposed feeding problems.
No.
We've done that. This network, this media entity has done it time and again. Free SHS and the problem with feeding. I think sometime last year, Laboni SHS, among other places, struggling with food. Practically every year, we've had problems. Buffer stock and all that. Are you surprised we're here again?
No, I'm not. The reason why I'm not surprised is because government has chosen to play the ostrich. And instead of government adopting a holistic approach in addressing the mosaic of challenges because the feeding aspect is one, but I would say it's perhaps the most important. Government has chosen to do what I would call firefighting. So when there are agitations from parents, when media houses do reports and documentaries, when letters leak from some headmasters indicating challenges to do with food, for example, the supply of inadequate food or the supply of one staple. We have instances where schools have been supplied with insane bags of oligari without beans, for example.
Right.
So when those things come up, government quickly moves in and addresses that. But government has failed to be honest in addressing the problem holistically. And the problem is like a monster. You know, it's almost like the head of Medusa. It has many tentacles. Because there is a component that I can demonstrate to you where some buffer stock food suppliers, I say some, have taken advantage of the system, perhaps because of political connections, or perhaps because they know that the headmasters do not have the capacity to hold them accountable. So, for example, a school is expected to have maybe 50 bags of gari. We have instances where a supplier will supply them with only 20 bags of gari. And when the headmaster tries to raise concerns, you are shut down. And if you push a bit further, you are penalized. So then they keep quiet. And then we have instances.
Wait.
Oh, yes.
Hold on. You're suggesting that because, yes, and political ties come in at any point. We know that, whether it's at the NDC or the MPP. But you are suggesting that in this instance, people are getting away with basically, this is fraud.
Yes, it is. And I can demonstrate
If someone
that.
is not supplying what they are meant to supply.
That is correct.
And they are getting paid for it.
That is correct.
Fraud.
Yes, it is fraud, but it is happening. So that is just one example. And I can give you several examples. In fact, I'm trying to pull up a document that was a report done by Apaak, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, where they gave examples of situations where food items were not fully supplied. They also gave examples of instances where, in fact, expired, weevil-infested food items were supplied to schools.
And we saw some of them
Yes.
in that
Yes.
excerpt where they were using neem tree or neem
Exactly.
to try and get the weevils out and then make them consumable. And
Exactly.
we already know that such a product would not be nutritious enough for the children.
So the point I'm making is that some of us are sounding like broken records. I've been speaking to these issues for several years, and I've been citing examples. And the Apaak report, 2017-2018 review of the Free Senior School policy, is the one I'm trying to pull up for you. I hope I didn't leave it in my car. But it is a public document that anyone can access.
You can tell us about some of the instances.
Very well. But even, it's, I think it's here at the top. And here it is 2018-2019.
Right.
And so this is the reason why I think that government...
But we're in 2024.
Exactly. So the point I'm making is that these issues are not new.
Right.
But rather than government taking a holistic look and addressing the challenge, as we have advocated, as Charles has advocated. You know, Charles is the heads,
Assisted secondary
senior
high schools, right?
Almost every year that they have their annual conference, they issue a communique,
right?
And they list the challenges affecting the program.
Is this one of the challenges they've been listing time and again?
Yes, the issue of food. The fact that buffer stock food suppliers undersupply. The fact that sometimes they get food items that are not wholesome. We even know of instances where canned food items expired have been supplied to schools. Where canned food items not certified by the FDA have been supplied to schools.
That could be dangerous.
Yes.
Items like that could lead to food poisoning.
Exactly.
Because you do not know.
Exactly. And these are even captured in the Auditor General's reports. I am a member of the Public Accounts Committee, so I always take note I mean, we don't have time, but I brought them for good reason. So these issues are not new. So if you were to look at the Apaak report, challenges food suppliers, says non-involvement of schools in the selection of suppliers, which definitely is an issue. So, for example, we are advocating, and Charles is also advocating, that we revert back to the previous arrangement, the previous system, where the schools are given the funding to identify their own suppliers, to procure their needs according to their own arrangements, as was the case. And this is something that we in the NDC have proposed. This is something that Charles himself has also proposed, but government doesn't seem interested in that.
And in any case, in different parts of the country, people have a different palate. You may go to some places where the students may prefer Banku more.
That is correct.
In other places, TZ more because of the availability of sorghum, millet.
That is correct.
Among other things. So if you do this, and it goes back to a point that the Agric Minister, Brian Echampo, recently, you know, back in our day, school farms, we were weeding, we were growing yam, maize, other things, right? It was a source of IGFs, if you like, internally generated funds for the schools. And we could even sell the excess to other entities, make money, and use it for other purposes.
I remember.
At least that's a step in the right direction.
Yes, I think so too.
What Brian Echampong is proposing.
I think so too. But in the meantime, when government is applying colossal sums of our resources, and if you look at the allocations from 2017 to the present, if you add all of them up, we are looking at a range of about 14 billion Ghana cedis. If you look at the actual expenditure, when the Minister for Finance came to Parliament to present the 2024 budget, he said government had expended 8.4 billion to finance the program. And for 2024, an allocation of 2.7 billion was approved. So give or take, if we say 8.4, which is actual expenditure from 2017 to 2023, and for 2024, we are looking at an allocation of 2.7. Let's assume that we are going to expend the whole 2.7, and you add it to 8.4. Look at the amount, and 70% of the cost of free senior school goes to feeding. So there cannot be any reason why our wards are being fed unwholesome food items, whilst buffer stock food suppliers, some of them, are shortchanging the schools. And let me give you a quick example. This is the 2021 Auditor General's report on the public accounts of Ghana, pre-university educational institutions for the financial year ended 31st December 2021. Page 142. Shortfall in supply of food items. The Auditor General captures 15 companies. Let's take one, rice. The companies are Havila Precious Limited and Lemons Ventures and Co. They were to supply 1,363 bags of 50 kg rice.
What's the figure again?
1,363 50 kg bags of rice.
Right.
They supplied only 1,000.
So it was left with 300.
The shortfall was 363.
That's about a third of the figure that
Exactly. 2, mackerel. Lemons Ventures, and that company is notorious. Take a note of that. I have decided to follow up and to find out who the owners and beneficial owners of this company is.
What did you find out?
So far, my questions that are filed in Parliament have not been responded to. But
responded to by whom?
By the Minister for Education. Because I want to know.
Right.
This company alone seems to get the biggest supply contracts as far as supplying food to our secondary schools are concerned. So get this, mackerel, Lemons Ventures. They were to supply 1,125 boxes of 24 by 400 grams. They supplied only 530. The difference is 597. And I can go on
But wait, and we don't have the time for that. But were they paid for the full sum or were they paid solely for what they delivered? That's the question.
Yes, I would argue. Because we have instances where buffer stock food suppliers have gone on demonstrations. You reckon that sometime last year, in fact, they had pitched camp at the offices of the buffer stock company.
I know that.
It was the same Minister for Agric and others on our side who intervened and the issue was resolved. I have never heard of this particular company complaining about a lack of payment. So,
but you also cannot assume. You cannot assume that just because there's a difference between we've agreed that we'll supply X amount, but we were not able to supply X amount. We supplied Y, and you paid for Y. It's a possibility.
It is.
Unless you can specifically tell me that they were paid for the full consignment and they did not deliver the full consignment.
I have no reason to believe that.
That's
I have no reason to believe that they have not been paid.
Why? Because they've not reacted?
I am in the sector. And I know. Look, if you want me to be honest, this is the same company that was given a contract to supply mackerel to all 724 senior high schools in this country.
The same company?
Yes. So
when? Which year?
This was in 2021.
2021.
Yes, and I filed a question to it. And in almost every segment of this document that I hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this company's name appears 5 times in terms of its, and that is part of the problem. So the point I'm trying to make is that.
And if we knew the ownership of the company, then it becomes clearer. Do they have political affiliations?
Exactly.
Are they getting away with anything because of those political affiliations? Is it even owned by people in power?
Exactly. But we all are in this dispensation.
When you say we all are in this dispensation?
As in the Ghanaian context.
Right.
And how political influence and influence peddling drives what happens, which I think is most unfortunate.
Do you think the education minister is aware of these things?
Of course, he has to be aware. I mean, look at the annual reports that the Conference of Government-Assisted Secondary Schools issues every year. And I can give you a copy. They list all the items. I've just shown you Auditor General's reports. I've indicated what Apaak had reported in 2018, 2019. We hear the complaints from parents. We know parents who have to smuggle food to campuses to feed their wards. We know some parents who have to pay women living in the vicinity of the schools
for their children.
Cook for their wards.
Right. We've seen all of that. And in fact, in what we just showed you, you would also see in there how some parents say they are smuggling about 100 cedis a week to their children to ensure that they eat properly and that they can actually undertake their academic work. But
what is worrisome? Let me make this point. What is worrisome with regards to this one issue, as far as the myriad of challenges, and I can list them, there are many, but since we are just doing food, and food is important, is that we are dealing with young adolescents, teenagers. They are in their formative years. So the issue of a balanced, nutritious diet is very important for their physical growth and well-being, for their mental growth and well-being,
cognitive development,
their emotional growth and stability. So when you have situations where they are underfed or they are fed with unwholesome food items, where they are fed with one staple, clearly we are doing a serious disservice to the future of this.
Right, but let's quickly look at how the education ministry has responded. I remember on one of these, when we're talking about a deficit of desks and all of that, the education minister infamously, I don't know why they do this sometimes, and some media station, and we were talking about schools of shame, and he was talking about schools of fame. Agreed. You can look at both sides because there are some schools that are doing very well.
And nobody's
even
arguing
the STEM schools they are bringing up. Fantastic. But if there are schools of fame and there are schools of shame on the other end, you should be able to target the schools of shame and make them schools of fame.
That's correct.
But the reactions, even when we came out with this, even before we had aired it, there were responses. But in light of this recent one, the Education Ministry is assuring that there's an adequate food supply to all senior high schools. In fact, when you look at page 9 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper today, I want to read verbatim. It says, the spokesperson for the ministry, Kwesi Kwarteng, disclosed this to the media on Friday, gave the assurance following concerns raised recently by some Ghanaians on food supply to the schools. He talks about the fact that there is an adequate supply. He explained that after the tour, they had conducted some tour, the teams confirmed that all schools currently had adequate stock of food in their storage facilities. You know what? I want you to call. If you're in any of these institutions or your ward, your child is in any of these institutions, and send us a message. And at some point, we may activate the phone lines. And they don't have food or there are some of these problems. Send us a message on our Facebook live stream, or maybe we can, I'll listen to my producer what he will say about whether we can take calls on this matter. And he also says, and this is where sometimes I worry, quote, following reports and speculations about the irregular distribution of food items to SHS or TVET institutions across the country, recently the sector minister, Dr. Osei Yao Educhum, tasked teams to all regions of the country to ascertain the true state of affairs in connection with the food supply in schools. Are they telling us, rational, sentient Ghanaians, that when they went across all of these 700 plus schools, they did not find any of this, which is why they are saying these are reports and speculations? I don't know. What's your take?
You see, that is my problem. It's exactly why I spoke about the politicized nature of dealing with anything to do with the Free Senior High School. Rather than admitting and coming around the table, as we have been calling for, organize a national stakeholders forum. Let's have an honest conversation. Bring in parents, bring in the teachers, bring in the heads, bring everyone. Let's look at the issues and address them. Government chooses to attack. And look, let me be honest with you. You are a vandal, I am a vandal. The motto of our great hall is truth stands. This is the posture of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo himself. You are forgetting that your own network was attacked. When once upon a time, you did a segment on the Free Senior High School policy and the challenges. You opened the phone lines for parents to call in. He had been invited by the University of Cape Coast, where he was going to be awarded a doctorate in educational leadership. He used that opportunity to chastise your network. And so when his vice, the flag bearer, his minister, Educhum, and now the spokesperson for the Ministry of Education, postures this way, the reality that students of this republic, sons and daughters of Ghanaian taxpayers, parents who pay taxes, have told your investigative journalists, confirmed by the heads of government-assisted secondary schools, captured in Auditor General's reports, captured in a Apaak report, and you call it speculation? I mean, they should credit us with a modicum of intelligence. These are the realities, and they ought to face the facts.
Right.
Rather than trying to deny and parry away and sort of suggest that anyone who speaks about the challenges is against the policy, they should get off their high horse. Government and government spokesperson alone cannot be more intelligent and more in tune with the issues compared to the rest of society, compared to the headmasters, compared to the teachers, compared to the parents, and even compared to the students. And that is precisely the problem. How do you describe what has been confirmed by multiple sources of information as speculation. And this is what I was saying. Firefighting. So yes, because of the, Joy FM, Joy News, multimedia documentary, very quickly they are moving in, they've gone to a few schools, they are trying to augment. Give it about 3 to 4 months.
Right.
We are going to go back to the status quo. And that is exactly the problem. Instead of dealing with it as a national issue, they continue to see it as a political matter. So defensive. But I've always argued that the policy is not being financed by the personal resources of Akufo-Addo, of Bawumia, or Educhum, or Kwesi Kwarteng. It is being financed by our collective resources. So we have a say.
All right. So we'd love to hear from you on this matter. You can be a parent, you can be a student, you can be a headmaster. I mean, we're not discriminating. I know for the headmasters, if you say something, you may suffer the consequences, as we've known. It's common knowledge. But call that number, 0302-211-692. 0302-211. Today we are using extension 2, 692. Give us a call. We have limited time. Let's know what your reality is in that institution or as a parent. So moving on from here, how do we, in talking about it, we must have solutions. We can't just come here and talk about the problem.
That is correct.
What are the solutions?
Well, for us in the NDC,
and again, I don't even like it for us in the NDC.
No.
What is the solution
we will get there.
To the matter?
The solution,
right,
as we have proposed, the solution as Charles has proposed, the solution as Nagrat has proposed, as almost every other stakeholder but government has proposed, is to decentralize the food distributory system. Let's go back to what pertained before the introduction of the current form of free senior high school.
All right.
Let's let the monies go back to the heads of the institutions. Let them meet with their bezes, their dining hall masters, dining hall professors.
Let them work it out. Hold for me. We have a caller. I'll come back to you.
Their supplies
we have
as needed.
Enoch from Koforidua. Enoch, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
What are your quick thoughts? Please, when you call, I want you to go straight to the point because we want to take as many calls as possible. What are your concerns?
Okay. I have my niece at Agona Secondary School.
Agona Secondary School.
They are asking them to bring what we call A4 sheet and official paper. Meanwhile, they are in their second semester, Form 2. When they were going, it was part of their proposal, which we bought. So then understand, as at now, they are still expecting them to bring what? A4 sheet and official sheet.
How much are they charging you for that?
No, they still have to buy it and send it to school.
Okay, I see. And have you been able to provide that?
He just left that a week ago. So he called me yesterday. I said, why should they demand this from you after you bought the...
Hello, Enoch?
I verified from a staff member, and he confirmed that, yes, it's true.
I see.
He extort money for me. Not knowing that it's a true thing.
I see. Thank you very much, Enoch, for sharing that concern. We'll get down to it. Agona Senior High School. Let's move on to the next caller, 0302-211-692. When we get, I know there was another caller on the line. When we get the next caller, we'll get back to it. So that is your proposal. Let the schools deal with the situation. Let them deal with the funding and let them have their own suppliers.
Let government send the funding for food to the schools. Let the schools identify their own suppliers and procure from them.
But listen, there could be corruption at the top from government's end and the supply chain. If you leave it to the schools as well, they'll also have their level of corruption. You know that?
Well, we've tried that before. And at the time, we were not hearing of the current arrangement. So whilst I cannot say that it will be incident-free, comparatively.
You think it will be better?
Yes, we wouldn't have companies being assigned huge contracts from the center to supply foods, and yet headmasters have no say when the quantities are not what they ought to be.
We have Felix from the Northeast region. Felix, where in the Northeast region are you? Hello, Felix. Oh, it appears we've we've lost Felix on that bit. Please try to call Felix and let's hear from you. Some of you, I don't know whether because of politics, I see some comments, and this one says, you are calling someone a certain word I cannot use, and you say the person is complaining about A4 sheets. Maybe if you realized how difficult it was for some parents to pay for certain things, then you would understand that he's complaining about A4 sheets because maybe his pocket cannot sustain it. But he makes mention of the fact that it was actually paid for. So when we have these conversations and people look at it from a very political slant, it becomes problematic. But we have Benjamin on the line. Ben, where are you calling from? Hello, Ben.
Yeah, I'm calling from Bawi.
All right, Ben, quick one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. My point is, why is the government denying this fact? Because we are hearing directly from the schools. You understand? I was with a very close friend of mine the other day, and the daughter calls from Wesley Girls High School, to be precise. And said, Daddy, we've been giving, they brought us the bags of rice, cooked as for us. And they've written on the bag, poultry feed.
They've written on the bags what?
Can you imagine?
Poultry feed.
Poultry feed.
Yes. Don't be surprised at all.
Poultry feed. And so the question is, what are the headmasters doing? Are they looking on for this food to be fed to the children? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do not know whether it was the food was rebagged and maybe, but even the fact that maybe that sack or whatever was used for poultry feed, and if you are even rebagging, I don't know. But I can't think far. The number is 0302 211692. 0302 211692. Call through and let us know your concerns. The Education Ministry says they don't have a current supply shortage. But what is your situation? Let's go to Sam in Kumasi. Sam, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much for calling. What are your thoughts for us?
It looks like this whole issue has been going back and forth, but I believe that the media also has a role to play. If you can be the independent player who can investigate some of these things and bring it to light.
Which is what we're doing.
These are our taxpayers' money in the first place, and these are our awards and our future. So I would want to also ask that Dr. Apaak, if he can leave his contact so that we can share some information with him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at least two institutions we have here. Agona, I don't know whether it's Agona Swedru, but Agona Senior High School, and there's also Wesley Girls SHS. Imagine that. Even the psychological effect. Let's assume it is wholesome food, but you see that the rice that you are meant to consume has been labeled poultry feed. Every time you eat it, psychologically, you're going to be thinking there's something amiss. Why? We have Haruna now from Sunyane. Haruna, good morning.
Good morning, Akago.
Right. Quick thoughts?
Thank you very much for having this wonderful program. I think we're deliberating. Free SHS is a very good policy. No one can deny that. But any system that is not ready for criticism is ready to fail. I repeat again, any system that is not ready for criticism is ready to fail. Because you can't do it alone. You have to get information from others to support yourself. Let me even leave the food side another part and then draw your attention to one of the basic things that I think we're doing as a country, denying ourselves eating good. You see, food in our country is seasonal. And what I know about this free SHS is that we have fixed prices for food, whether it is each season or not. If you even put that aside, every region has the kind of food they are able to produce. So if I'm here in Sudan, and then there are a lot of maize and other places here, then somebody from Accra will bring maize from Sunyani. For me, I think it is not value for money. There should be an arrangement so that the local people will supply what they have to ease the pressure on government. I want to beg authorities. It is not that somebody wants to bring the program down, because if you look at where I'm coming from, it is access that brought me to Sunyani. And for that matter, no one is saying access to education is bad. But we have to be ready to accept criticism so that we can all move together as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. We may pick maybe one or two more and then wrap in the studio.
Sure.
That is if those calls come through, if you're minded to share your thoughts. What is your reflection on all of these callers? Because I listen to what the Education Ministry is saying. I listen to the callers. They are diametrically opposed.
Well, I think that the callers are speaking to the reality on the ground. And as I said, and I keep saying, almost every other stakeholder in this republic agrees that there are challenges, except government, which admits but is very quick to adopt a defensive posture, and that is not helpful.
It's not helpful.
It's not helpful.
Let me go to Uncle Afo in Cape Coast. Uncle Afo, Memoachio, what are your thoughts for us?
Mpacho, I'll go into my local director, okay, Frankie.
Hello. You go ahead. It's Ghana month. It's okay.
Hello.
Go ahead, Uncle Afo. Uncle Afo, don't listen to yourself on the TV. There'll be feedback. Just go ahead and speak to me on the phone. Uncle Afo, are you there?
The good side of the SHS. Into me and SHS.
It appears we have a challenge there because he's listening to himself on the television instead of listening on the phone. So you'll have feedback, you'll have delays. When you call, listen on the phone. Lower the volume on your set. Listen on the phone. Let's have a conversation. Mr. Moa. All right.
So the
final
point
thoughts.
I'm making is that some of us have been speaking to this issue since 2017. Finally, we have a documentary that is confirming what we already know.
Right.
I've given you examples of Auditor General reports indicating the supply of unregistered food items, tin tomatoes. It says, Hila Liman Senior High School.
I'm sorry I have to do this again, but we'll pick the last caller and then I will not interrupt you again. Let's go to Samuel from Wa. Good morning, Samuel.
Hello.
Sanazua.
Hello, this is Hamza calling from Wa.
Oh, it's Hamza rather.
Yes, from
All right.
Wa.
Hamza, what are your thoughts for us?
Yes. Listen to the man speaking.
Right.
He's a politician, but the way he speaks, it's like he has removed his political glasses before speaking. He just brings out the facts and everything. I want you to record that program for us so that in case they are also in opposition, he should do the needful.
Right.
Because he ended up by concluding that the money Akufo-Addo is using to run this free SHS is from the taxpayer. That is true.
Right.
If they also come, they should manage it well and make us feel the money we are paying that they have now come to use it well for our brothers. Just fast forward when this Ramadan was coming. We have to cook banku and send to school for our brothers. That's the reality on the ground. And the fact he also showed on TV and your distance, what is the name? The program you're about to air.
Right, the documentary.
That also comes to light that program. There's actually a problem with feeding. And yet the politician will come and tell us that there's nothing wrong with it. As if we are food.
And I think that's a good point to conclude on, as though we were fools, right? So, Doc, he's saying you're speaking the facts, but, and I always hold you politicians to this, now you're in opposition. You're trying to get to power. If you come, and you do the same thing, we'll deal with you the same way.
Well, I can promise you that we will do better. We will address the issues. And that is why we are calling for a national stakeholders forum. If it doesn't happen, when we come, we would initiate it. And some of the reforms that we are looking at introducing is to revert back to the old arrangement in as far as the food is concerned.
Right. So 1 minute for your concluding thoughts. What are you leaving us with?
Well, I would want to urge parents and the students to continue to speak up because the heads of our public secondary schools are encumbered for obvious fear of retribution
right.
and sanctioning. So it has to take the parents, the students, and in fact, you, the media. And I must commend you, because what you have done, I don't know how you did it, but I know that to actually have access, to be able to get onto a secondary school campus to do what you did, I give you a lot of commendation, because you have provided visual, concrete evidence to back what is already known and reported. And that is bound to compel government to admit the challenge. And that is the beginning of finding a solution. So we are ready, we are prepared, every stakeholder is prepared. Government should take advantage of what it told the IMF, that it will review and rationalize the free senior high school policy program and initiate the process now.
Okay.
If they choose not to do it
right.
and continue to dance around defining review as cancel and choose to use the word improve, when we assume the reins of power, we will do the needful in the interest of the country.
Dr. Apaak, thank you. Let me bring in, there's a last caller, you've made it through. Joe, somewhere in the Volta region. Where in the Volta region are you calling from, Joe?
South Dine constituency.
South Dine, okay. So what are your thoughts for us?
Please, my issue is that the PRO of the ministry should better explain what he meant by adequate supply. What is adequate? Is it the chicken they are eating? Is it the eggs that the students are eating? Or is it the porridge that they are eating without bread?
Right.
So then what is adequate? The ministry should explain to us what is adequate.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too. So adequate to know. HSA, when the ministry says adequate and the schools and the students are complaining, what does adequate mean? You can look forward to the airing of Empty Plates, the free SHS Promise. It's already started airing on radio, Joy 99.7 FM, but on TV, this channel, it will be airing tonight at 8:30 p.m. You want to stay tuned for that. If you've had any doubts, we'll demystify the situation for you right here on this network with the visuals and everything. But right now, I'd like to thank the Deputy Ranking Member on the Education Committee of Parliament, Dr. Clement Apaak. Doc, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Right.
And keep being pace setters.
That's what we do. We're primus inter pares, remember. But stay with us, because up next we're going to be contemplating, yes, we've all suffered from the internet downtime and all of that. The National Communications Authority, just re-echoing what others have said, says it may take about 5 weeks, a month and a week, for faulty undersea cables to be restored, bringing back stable connections in affected countries. We know countries in some parts of Europe, some parts of the Middle East, and some parts of Africa have been affected. But where do we go from here? We have a conversation on that up next on the AM show. Do stay.